dare you speak basketball.
There it is.
It's the Confederacy of Dunks Basketball Podcast.
Hello and bonjour. Welcome to the Confederacy of Dunks Basketball Podcast. I am your host, Freddie Rivas, and who are you, sir?
Producer Matty Dunks. And how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I feel like if we're not in the same room, the basketball podcast echo part is going to be tough.
Yeah, but I think we got it, though.
I think we did get it. Yeah, like I'm not saying it's so tough we shouldn't try. I'm just saying we need to like rehearse sometimes in the middle of the night.
We're doing it. Yeah, we're doing it blindfolded. So.
How are you doing? You're a bit under the weather.
I'm a bit under the weather. I got a bit of a cold, but don't worry. I learned that everyone's taking silver water now. So I'm taking that.
Asked me, is this Adam Silver water? What's going on?
Yeah. It's not like an Adam Silver promotion that he's doing or an endorsement. Okay. It's actual silver in water that you can get at the health food store. And apparently it works great for, it's the new oregano oil. Let's put it that way.
Oh, cool. And then did you find this off Gwyneth Paltrow's website? Or?
It wasn't on the Goop site. She's probably a level up. She probably actually uses like gold water. Which is, Cheers, probably a whole different thing, but
she's like titanium smoothie or whatever. Okay, well, we're a basketball podcast. We're a fan podcast. Yeah. We know a lot too, though. You know what I'm saying?
We know tons.
We have all sorts of guests, predominantly comedians. But if people want to help us or be invested in our individual and team growth, how might they help us? Where might they find us, Matt?
The easiest way to keep up to date with the Confederacy of Dunks is to subscribe to us on your favorite podcatcher, whether that be Stitcher or Spotify or iTunes or Player FM or whatever you use. That is totally fine. We're open to all of them. You can go to our website, dunkspodcast.com. You can listen there as well. And all the links for all of our social media and whatnot are there for you to click on too. That'd be great if you could subscribe and rate whenever you can. You only have to do it once and then you're good in our books, and we'll be, launching our Patreon next week.
That's right. So the Patreon, I was actually thinking it'd be kind of fun. Right now we have 4 tiers. I'll tease it a little bit. There's a Masai tier. That's the top tier, obviously. And then we got a Kyle Lowry tier and a Pascal Siakam tier, and the tier 1 is Serge Ibaka.
Yeah.
So if you have any tiers or ideas or things you think, hey, I would sign up for a Patreon if you guys did blank, shoot us an email. Let us know. The Patreon is all about us engaging with you and you helping us out. In any way, financially, but, also helping us out, like, how you feel is appropriate. So we want to do stuff that you like, right, Matt? Is that fair?
Yeah, I think that's great. Yeah, like we want to use the Patreon to, help build the podcast and bring more content and make it even better than we have. That's
heck yeah.
So that would be great. This is our last off-season episode. Thank you for sticking with us. I know we've all been hungry for basketball content now that the season is starting up, and it started with quite the fireworks going off. So it's
that's right.
They got your attention now, don't they?
That's right. Well, it's the first championship summer Raptors fans have ever been able to experience. So I hope you enjoyed it.
Yeah. How was it for you overall? Can you sum it up in a couple of words?
Oh, it was basically just magical. Like, I'll say there was a couple thorns on my side as far as, just a casual writing off of the Raptors and slagging us and people, demanding we trade all our players because what's the point in us being good? All that kind of stuff. But it was hard to care that much because we won it all. Yeah. We won the championship, and there's just too many positive memories from that. And I think I'm probably good for another 25 years.
Yeah.
I should say this. I did my fantasy, or not my fantasy, my seat draft with my brothers.
That's right.
And I think I got pretty good games this year. Can I tell you the games?
Yeah, please tell me.
So I'm going to Portland.
Yeah.
I'm going to T-Wolves.
Nice.
I'm going to San Antonio because guess what? I didn't get to say goodbye to DeMar.
Yeah, that's nice.
So I wanted to make sure that happens.
Yeah.
I am also going to the now I'm forgetting the teams. I am going to, let me say, the Denver Nuggets.
Denver Nuggets.
Oh, and Philly. That's my last team.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, and it's not the Denver Nuggets, it's Sacramento Kings.
Sacramento.
So, but I think that
it's a fun
without
team.
further ado, we should get going with this pod, right?
All right, sure. Let's bring on the first guest.
Yeah. Okay, so our three guests are all amazing. We got Simon Ho, who was making booze when we spoke to him.
Yeah.
And we got Adam Christie, recently won Sirius XM's top comic, which is absolutely insane.
Huge.
And producer and writer at CBC News, we have Derick Deonarain.
Yeah.
And we'll be talking to him perhaps in the CBC studios. I don't know. He's pretty cool though. You know what I mean? He's got access to a lot of rooms.
Oh
stuff,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
Yeah, we could be talking to him from the top of the CN Tower for all I know. Okay. With that dumb joke, I think let's get cracking, shall we?
Sounds good.
We the North.
I am here with Spirit of York co-founder in the Distillery District. I think elsewhere as well. He's a hardcore Raptors fan. I think he is currently making booze.
Yep.
Maybe he's taking a break from that, but he's an awesome dude. Give it up at home for Simon Ho. Pretty good. I hope you like your weird intro track.
It's got a bit of a Blade fight scene vibe, you know?
I'm 100% into the straight to DVD action flick soundtrack.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's like they can't afford the right setting for every scene, so they reuse a lot of scenes.
Yep. Yeah, okay, I like it.
Like, I'm pretty sure this guy's coming around the same hallway, but you know what? He's kicking ass. Yeah, thanks for doing the show, dude.
My pleasure. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
Well, we're back. We're all champions. Congratulations. By the way, I feel like I'm going to say that to people all year because every Raptors fan deserves to hear it. You're a champion, Simon.
Absolutely. Until next summer, until someone else is a champion, we are the NBA champions.
Exactly. And
Feels
I feel
pretty good.
Yeah, like it's important for me to enjoy that. Like we have to remind people that we're champions. Like until we are eliminated from the playoffs, or God forbid the regular season, but until the Raptors are eliminated from contention, they are they're the defending champs.
I agree with that. And make no mistake, every coach of every other team that plays the Raptors this year is going to, before they go out on the court, say, you know what, these are the NBA champs. You gotta, don't let up on these guys. They're the NBA champs. Okay.
I also think we have one of the deepest teams in the league, so I think we'll be. I mean, when you get to the playoffs, it'll be a shorter bench, so we'll see what happens. But that's until we win our second championship in 2021.
Oh, yeah. See, this is how we got to start the pod every time. Just talking about how deep the Raptors are and about winning back-to-back championships. But yeah, Simon, I feel like that's a really good transition into our first topic, which is who are the 10 best Raptors? So I figured a fun way to do this would be we'll start from the very best and work our way to the 10th best, and we'll see kind of where we where we kind of start to split hairs and disagree. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Okay, well maybe I'll kick it off. I think my number one, I could be persuaded a couple different ways, but I think I'm going to go Pascal Siakam as my number one Raptor. Is that
so? Here, I'm going to need clarification on this because I think he is probably the best player that they have on their roster for this upcoming season. But don't know if he's necessarily the most important to the overall Raptors' success.
That's fair. I feel like number 2, or if he's your number 1, has got to be that guy. And I think we're probably both thinking about the same person.
Kyle Lowry.
Kyle Lowry,
that big contract. And it's interesting, like he's, got to be in the talks for greatest Raptor of all time.
Oh, yeah.
But he also, I think, with this 1-year contract, becomes our biggest bargaining chip moving forward if things are not going well, towards the trade deadline. So he becomes, I think, the most important piece of this Raptors team this year.
No, that's a really good point. I feel like Lowry is both a really big bargaining chip as far as, if you're a team that feels like you're a contender and your window's now and you need a point guard. Lowry has proven, obviously, that he can win a championship and also gel with anyone and everyone and make players around him better. And then, for us, it's kind of like we have to calculate, what does having him on a legacy contract mean? And also what does having him this season mean? Like, who is he going to make better around him? So...
Yeah, I think everything stems from how well Kyle Lowry will play. Do I think Siakam is poised to be a takeover game kind of player? Absolutely. Is it going to be this coming season? I hope so. I don't, we saw the growth in him in the last 2 seasons is unbelievable. Mm-hmm. So there's no ceiling there. But then it's really like when he's not there, he's going to have those growing pains, right? And who is that veteran leader who's going to get you your 7-8 assists a game, probably put up 16, 18 points a game this year, and it's really going to go through Kyle and, his energy on defense. Like, we saw that in the playoff run last year. Like, he was an impact player even when he seemed to be struggling offensively.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think we go as Kyle goes, and that's been the case for, I think 5 or 6 years now, and it's always got to be Kyle Lowry over everything. And, maybe he should be number 1 on this list just out of respect. But I feel like the point is, we're going to see who gets edged out. So if there's a couple, if there's a couple discrepancies, but we largely agree, I think that's okay. So I'm going to go to number 3. And who knows, there might be more discrepancies here too, but this is kind of tight for me, and I think I'm leaning towards Marc Gasol as our 3rd best player.
Yeah, you know what? This is a tough one because this could change for me really quickly. If there's a lot of players who could move into this spot. Norm, OG, even Fred, I think, is going to have an incredibly important role this year. Kyle's getting up there in years.
Fred's the guy for me who I think I was really debating, is Fred our 3rd best player or is it Mark?
Mm-hmm. I mean, if Norm keeps doing what he did in the preseason, that becomes a very legitimate secondary or scoring option, right? Like if Kyle's sort of distributing the ball and running the offense behind Siakam. I mean,
sorry, Simon, are you referring to Norm Klay Thompson Powell?
I am.
Oh yeah, because
he's more.
He was
athletic,
ridiculous in the preseason.
Absolutely, and it was shocking. And I think he's got a lot to prove. Like he's got these other guys. Everyone's talking about Fred VanVleet. A lot of these guys talking about who just had another crazy. Is it Terrence Davis?
Terrence Davis looked great,
right? And so he's like, well, he's got to earn his spot because there's a lot of guys coming up behind him now. I mean.
Yeah, for sure.
So I think right now I agree with you. Marc Gasol going into the season is going to hold that number 3 spot. He's the best passing big man, or one of the best passing big men in the league. So
who would you drop at number 4? So far we got Pascal, Kyle, Gasol. It's fairly easy now as far as they definitely belong in the top 10. It's not really.
Yeah, absolutely.
But who would be your hypothetical number 4?
I think I got to go Fred. I think I have to go Fred. The role that he's going to have to play, Kyle's getting up there in years. He played such an important role on that secondary sort of squad that we had, that bench mob, if you will, and I think he's sort of taken that leadership role. And there's that iconic photo of him lying there, face bloodied up, where it's now like, okay, this is the dude. He didn't seem like he was hurt. He was like annoyed that he was like, I gotta go get stitches, and he came right back in, toothless Fred, and he played incredibly. So I think he's poised to make that next big step.
Fred is just like a legend upon legends after that. Like, we'll be talking about Fred in that playoff run for a very long time.
Absolutely.
Like, having a baby, then just like basically like stepping on a comet and shooting out of this atmosphere it was ridiculous. Like, he literally just exploded and was, in a lot of ways outplayed Steph, which is just can't be understated. Like,
and he you're never going to stop Steph from scoring, but he did a great job containing and not letting it get too out of hand, especially when he was all they had, at the end of that final series. Again, this is another one that I think will shift. I think outside of the top three, you're going to see a lot of movement now, a quarter through the season, halfway through the season, going into the playoffs.
I couldn't agree more. And I think like once we get closer to like 8, 9, 10, it's going to be even dicier. So I'm going to throw in at number 5, understanding it could be Norm, it could be OG, but I'm actually still feeling like Serge is going to be an important part of this team. I think he had a really good playoffs. I mean, I think OG or Norm could easily have a better season than him, but I mean, Serge is, for me, he's still going to be one of the really important guys, so I feel comfortable putting him in there.
Yeah, Serge 100% needs to be in the top 10. Where he falls in that, I'm not certain. If he can get back to early Serge defense, and we saw like moments of it in the playoffs last year. He had a couple great sequences. I don't know if I put him ahead of Norm or OG at this point, only because of where I think the ceiling is for both of those guys, especially OG, who we haven't really seen. Like, my heart broke for him last year, missing that playoff run, but he started looking like the future, really early on, and who knows how he's going to bounce back from.
He was guarding LeBron in the playoffs and doing a pretty good job of it. That amazing backboard shot notwithstanding, he was fantastic in that series.
Oh, totally. And he kind of approaches it fearlessly. Like, if anybody doesn't care or walks around with what would be considered that OG attitude, like, it's OG, right? Like, he's like, I don't care who you are. This is who I am. Like,
yeah, he's pretty great. Like, when he's also has that amazing moment where I think it was Markieff Morris pushed him, and it was like, oh no, a Morris brother pushed OG, and OG was just absolutely unafraid, and it was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I have high hopes for him. I mean, the problem is with no games played going into it, you're right, it is quite dicey here. I don't know where this is going to sort of end up, and I hate giving in so easily, but you might be right on Serge because he's proven to be an important part where Norm and OG have as well, just not to the extent that Serge has.
Yeah, for me, Serge just has a little bit more of that, proven reliability, but I'm also with you in that I think the other guys have, starter potential this year where we know Serge is good enough to start in the NBA, but maybe not in an optimal setting. Like, I don't want to speak for everyone, but I'm kind of hoping that it's, Gasol's our starting center and Serge is our backup, and we just have a really, really intelligent, deep center for 48 minutes.
Absolutely, and because you got, there's a lot of age in those two guys at those two positions, right? We got Kyle and Fred there, and then we have Mark and Serge, and so having that backup there, where you can take some of that load off, especially in early season games that aren't too important. Every game's important, obviously, but I think it's going to be extremely important to the overall success of the team. Is we don't have any guys that are really going to have to push 40 minutes a game.
Yeah, totally. Okay, so we're at 5. Let's see if we can. I think we know these last 2 spots are Norm and OG, right?
Yeah,
is that
absolutely.
fair?
Yeah, 100%.
So let's throw Norm down. Let's go Norm, OG,
Yeah.
And then here's where I think it gets really interesting. So that's 7 guys. And then, Nurse is probably going to play 8 or 9 most nights, and 10 some nights, and then the occasional night like 11 if it's like some extenuating circumstances.
Or games, yeah, which I think we are going to get lots of. I think teams will find it very hard to score on us.
Oh, I think so too. We have a lot of good defenders. Shooting, on the other hand, might be an issue at times.
Yeah, absolutely.
For this squad, which might play into some of my late decisions here. But yeah, who would you like? Is there anyone who stands out as like the clear number 8? Like, okay, well, if we remove Pascal, Kyle, Gasol, Fred, Ibaka, Norman, OG, this guy is obviously next.
So I have 3 players that I had really high hopes for that I would have put in this position, and that's Stanley Johnson, Rondé, and then Matt Thomas.
Right.
Because I think they're all going to have incredible roles. I really liked the pickup of Stanley Johnson. I thought he was super athletic, great defender. Kind of disappointed with his performance so far in what I've seen.
Yeah, he's looked kind of rough. And I thought he was going to be kind of like have similar vibes to OG, but he really looks kind of like out of sorts. And maybe it's a new team thing, but I'm with you on Stanley Johnson. I thought he was kind of like a lock for 7th or 8th place like on our roster spot, and now I'm kind of like, should this guy play?
Yeah, that's a huge drop too, from like, oh, this guy's going to get solid 14, 15 minutes a game to I don't know if he gets any. So that was disappointing. But I think to speak to your point about shooting, and that's where I'm like, oh, well, Matt Thomas is going to be the one that comes in there and almost plays a Kyle Korver role for us. He doesn't do much, but he can hit some threes and spread that defense out.
Yeah, and I think he's one of those guys that can definitely, but he can pump fake and kind of like he's not stuck shooting or nothing where, when I watch a guy like Malcolm Miller play, I'm like, you're tall, you look the part, you can clearly shoot the 3, and you've been fantastic at the G League level, but it seems like you truly cannot do anything else. And on the basketball court, like that just doesn't work. Like you can't do
not anymore.
Yeah, even a guy like Danny Green, like he can pump fake and then pass, and it's like you can't really dribble, but he's kind of he can make a play if his first option's taken away. So I think I'm with you on Matt Thomas. I mean, Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, he's just like, he creates things on the court. So I feel like he's also got to make something happen. But then we're kind of in this weird spot where unless you think OG or Rondé is going to play minutes at the 4, the next guy kind of has to be a big man, right?
Well, yeah, and that's where I kind of put Rondé in there. I put him at that backup 4. I do think that's where he'll get his minutes. I think we'll see some interesting pairings of like Marcus Siakam or Ibaka Siakam, Marcus Rondé kind of thing. I think we'll see some interesting combos. And so, yeah, you're right, but who is that going to be? Like, I don't think Boucher is there.
Yeah, you know what? I'm kind of with you too. Like on Boucher. Sorry, if you had a point about Boucher, go for it.
No, that's it. I just don't think he's there. I'm rooting for him to be good.
I know.
Because I love the Cancun, but.
Well, and he clearly is good, but in the NBA, it's how you fit into the larger picture, and he's the type of guy where if you're like, hey, go out there and make something happen, like he can. But I think in the NBA, you need to kind of be like, hey, go out there and make this specific thing happen so that we can execute the plan. Mm-hmm. And I think he's one of those guys where, like a Nurse recently said in an interview that he'll get more time if he rebounds better and finishes at the rim better, which is kind of like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But then when you look at him, you're like, oh, I think he needs another 100 pounds to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that kind of brings us to the end of the list, although we were chatting a little bit earlier about Terrence Davis. Is he someone who maybe, because of his kind of like spark, gets some time over a guy like Stanley Johnson? Or do you think Terrence Davis is like a good candidate to like, we'll just let him run wild in the G League and dominate, and then we'll bring him along later?
I think you start him in the G League. I think you do. it's such a hard call, and this is, because there's Patrick McCaw saw some good minutes for us. Like
Patrick McCaw too is another guy where I don't really Patrick McCaw, Malcolm Miller. I'm not seeing much room for them like on the squad. Like we have a lot of good swingmen who can play D. So I think it's kind of like if you're one of those guys, like you better come in and like nail threes.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it's kind of like you're a little bit like redundant.
And I mean, it's a great problem to have.
It's a good problem. We're deep, like you said.
Yeah, I just I think I'm not all the way out on Stanley Johnson yet because it could be situational. I think he's got the athleticism to it. I don't think he's a bad basketball player. But I really don't know. Like I think Stanley Johnson starts the season in that 10 spot, and you give Davis some time in the G League. But I think that's very thin ice for Stanley.
Yeah, no, I think you got it covered, and he's in that point in his career as well, where he's a high draft pick. He's been given a couple opportunities, and this is now an opportunity to say like, hey, you're not going to start, you're not going to play a lot of meaningful minutes, but you're now in a situation where it's like you better do something, or some other guy who's hungrier, maybe wasn't drafted as high, is just going to come take your spot, because this is the most, I always say it's the most elite like team sport in the world. As far as professional athletes, like in the NBA, there's 450 spots. That's it. In every other major league, there's hundreds and hundreds of more positions, and that doesn't even reflect that basketball is probably, if not more popular than the majority of North American sports. It's a contender. It's really up there. So.
Well, I mean,
okay, but I think. Sorry, go ahead.
Truly an international sport, right? And so I think more and more we're seeing like your lineage, your basketball lineage doesn't mean as much anymore. Like you when you play on a team with Fred, your draft status means nothing.
It's true,
right? And I think Stanley Johnson's got to understand.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great way to put that too, because like Fred is like, where were you drafted? Cool, I'm coming at you. But yeah, no, I think you bringing up the international point is kind of a good transition here. We don't have too much time, which is hilarious because it's an extremely complex issue. But I haven't recorded a podcast since the Daryl Morey tweet and the kind of the Chinese business fallout and Adam Silver and all of the comments that have been made and all of the sponsorship that's been pulled and all tension in the NBA. So maybe I'll just throw it to you. Like, is there an initial take you have, or we're obviously not philosophers or political specialists, but I think this is kind of interesting because it's really centered around basketball, even if it is bigger than basketball. So I think most hardcore basketball fans will have an opinion, even if it's kind of like, whoa, I'm just learning about all of this. So yeah, before I ramble on, I'll throw to you. Is there something that's making you feel, or yeah? Yeah,
like I mean, I first and foremost, I get this is a business, and they need to understand what those margins and bottom line means when it comes to that, right? And you have what is at times the most outspoken sort of player base of any sport, and I've come to appreciate the fact that they can say these things and stand up for what they believe in, and having half my family be from Hong Kong, I and them leaving sort of when it transitioned to the ruling power there, I understand how deep-seated this is. I think a big thing that a lot of people are missing is how deep-seated the basketball culture is in China. Like, this isn't Yao Ming. This is pre-1900s.
Right.
Like, basketball has been in China since the pre-1900s. Like, YMCA missionaries brought it there like 1890-ish, like right after, a couple years after the first game of basketball was ever played. Wow. And I think this is what's getting lost, right? Like, when we sort of got to see that take off was with the Yao Ming and stuff like that. And that's why I think there is such that outrage, is that Daryl was part of this franchise that they all fell in love with in China. They had the first person who looked like them be a superstar in the NBA, and I think the biggest mishandling of it was Adam Silver. Like, he's got to come out and say something right away, right? And it's not fair to these players to have that put on them, right? Like,
yeah, I honestly couldn't agree more. And sorry if I'm kind of interjecting, but I think you made such a good point about how deep-seated the basketball history is in China, and how it predates most of what we know. And I think a lot of NBA fans just see China as this like large business venture, but it's so much more than that. It's their national sport, and there's a lot of countries that I think people wouldn't really expect where basketball is their national sport. Like, it's one of my favorite quiz questions is asking people who they think it is, because it's Estonia, Slovenia, Philippines, China, and Lithuania. Yeah. And there's a through line there, and it's communism. And because there's no major, there's no one position in basketball that has a natural advantage, like a pitcher in baseball or a goalie in soccer or hockey. I think it represents like two unified sides. And
absolutely, there's a lot of cultural differences.
I just felt like I wanted to add.
No,
to that.
Absolutely, as you should. And the big thing about it being the national sport there is that it's not like this was decided for them. The citizens of China, I mean, whether you believe they have the freedom to make this choice or not, voted to make basketball their national sport. Like, this was something that they fell in love with. And it's, and there's huge, deep cultural differences. But I think that when you see these players speak out in other leagues or in support of players in other leagues, like I always think about the Colin Kaepernick situation, right? And how closely tied into that is. And people disagree and stuff like that. There's got to be a line in the sand drawn somewhere. And it's such a complicated issue. And I think, a large part of this is due to China being able to flex their muscle as this giant economic power now. They are able to say that. And it's how much do you want to cave? And I think the goal of the NBA is to become an international league. And I think it truly is the most international league in the world. And the argument is obviously soccer against that. But if you look at just the awards and the champions of the NBA last year, there was one American on that list.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it was like Doncic, Giannis, Siakam. Exactly. And to your point, I think I also agree with what you said about Adam Silver, because the reason it's important to draw a line in the sand is, if you take the Kaepernick issue, it's like, oh no, what's Nike going to do? Or if you take, other major issues that have happened in sports, it's like you usually kind of, it's like this big thing. It's like, what is this single company going to do? Mm-hmm. But in a situation with China, it's like, well, we have unilateral control over X amount of companies. So all of those companies can shut down on you if you mess with us. And I think if you're the NBA, that's a scary business proposition. Oh, where you're kind of like, oh wow, if any one of our parties, which we don't fully control, ever says the wrong thing, then we could be looking at like not just Nike or not just Apple or not just one big company. We could be looking at many companies at the same time dropping us or something like that. Well, and I think, yeah, sorry.
It's been the evidence has been there about how China's reacted and how these other companies have. Like, the NBA is not exclusive to is not exclusive to the NBA. Apple and how China sort of recognizes things they consider their territories is extremely difficult for a lot of companies to navigate, right? Like, companies have been apologizing about showing maps that are not, China doesn't consider accurate because Taiwan or Tibet are not included. And it's where do you draw that line? I believe people should be able to say, whether I agree with it or not, anything that they want. You're going to face the repercussions one way or another, and there's going to be there's going to be pushback. I mean, I saw LeBron saying, LeBron came out and he had to clarify what he said. Everyone sort of looks to LeBron to be this leader, and it's like, he's at the end of the day, he's human, and he's going to say things, and I think overall he's done a great job of being an ambassador for the game. But in no way do we need to make these people political role models. Like,
see, okay, Simon, I feel like it's almost like we could have rehearsed this, because you talked about all the things I wanted to talk about in regards to this. And I think, with LeBron being like an ambassador of the game, I think sometimes he's taken for granted how rarely he makes missteps. And in a situation like this is just so absolutely loaded. And, personally, I don't like that he's kind of insinuated that Daryl Morey made a mistake. But I also don't think it's fair for him to feel the brunt of the NBA's kind of like quiet behavior. And they know that their superstars are going to get asked the more difficult questions. So it is the NBA's responsibility. It is their PR responsibility to come out with like a pretty... like to not necessarily draw a line in the sand, but not be vague in your wording. Don't put LeBron in a position where he has to speak for the NBA, and then you have someone like Enes Kanter, kind of offended at what LeBron said, and people are saying his tweet about Turkey is a little bit of a subtweet of LeBron, because Turkey has tried to kidnap him. His father has been arrested. Like really some anti-democratic, like heinous stuff has happened in his life.
Absolutely.
And for him, speaking out it's not a business move. It truly is life or death. So I think it puts LeBron in his position where it's like, hey man, you better speak like as well as Obama would, because that's what's at stake. And if you're LeBron, it's kind of like, okay, I guess I'll take on this challenge, but also I don't think I should be. Like, I think Adam Silver should be, and other people who, are the top. Like, I haven't heard anything from any of the owners, who for the most part are all richer and more powerful than LeBron. So
absolutely. I mean, definitely richer. I mean,
maybe not more powerful, because LeBron's got huge influence. Yeah.
And what and the misstep thing is it really hits the nail on the head for me. Like, there's no scandals with LeBron. And I mean, a lot, not that I'm saying, you got to go to college to be intelligent, but like, this kid does, he came into the league, he never really knew anything but basketball, didn't have an easy time going. He's incredibly gifted, and now all of a sudden he's supposed to be this world leader.
I know.
Like, he puts a ball in a hoop for a living. He does it extremely well. He's done a great job in the community, but we shouldn't be looking to him to have the answer to this. And I don't even have an answer.
Me either, exactly. And this kind of thing, always happens. I remember when Jeremy Lin first did like one of his first kind of like big Asia tours. He was asked to make all sorts of political statements about like Taiwan and China and their relations. And I think during one of the like he was in this big giant kind of like auditorium, and his answer was great, because he said something to the effect of like, "This is like truly over my head." And I think that, yes, I am very famous, and I understand I can have like important influence here, but also at the same time, I could have a negative influence. So I want to know what I'm talking about. And he didn't really answer the question, and people were upset, but it was also like, I felt for the guy, because it's like Linsanity happened. Then it's like, okay, we're whisking you away on a world tour. I hope that all of your international politics are up to date. And it's kind of like, I don't think they are. Like, he was probably like 25 at the time,
100%. And you speaking, he did drop 40 in his China debut, but pretty happy for Jeremy Lin. But at the end of the
Jeremy,
day,
champion.
I mean, at the end of the day, that it's like we're looking for these guys to have that answer, and we put the pressure on them, and it's like, well, that's a non-answer. If they just come out and be like, I don't know enough. Like, I think Draymond's response to it was great. If someone asked Draymond, it was like, I don't know enough about this to say anything. But LeBron is in a position where it's like, well, you have to have an opinion on this.
Yeah,
he probably should, but like, how much free time do these guys have to read the world news? Probably not a ton. They probably know a little bit about what's going on, but what they know most about is how to play basketball. There's also an aspect of, look at the hate and borderline like racist stuff Jeremy Lin had to deal with in the NBA, and then put yourself in the position of a Chinese basketball fan who often is made to feel illegitimate, right? Like you look at the hate that he received being an Asian basketball player. There's the whole Kenyon Martin situation, like people just always hating on him, right? And you look at these Chinese fans who, they got crapped on in Toronto when Jeremy Lin hit that game winner. Oh, you guys are bullshit fans. Pardon my language. Sorry, you guys are terrible fans. Yeah. This, and that. But no, man, for the first time in their life, other than maybe, they're seeing someone who is not genetically superior to basketball than they are necessarily. Jeremy Lin's a somewhat average height, short NBA player, worked really hard, got it done, and they rallied behind him. And, and now kind of in this situation, you have this country, and I understand why they feel disrespected there. They're like, well, what do you mean? Our feelings don't matter? Right? I get it. I just, it's such a nuanced situation that I don't think there's a right answer. This is a lose-lose.
Yeah, and, I think also it's going to continue to evolve, but unfortunately, I think we've run out of time because I got to call my next caller, Simon, and I'm sure you got to keep making booze, right?
I do. I do have to make booze. I do appreciate the call, and it's good to talk this stuff out. So I do appreciate that because I'm not even sure I'm 100% on where I land on it. I know where I feel about what they're protesting in Hong Kong, but as you're asking me to figure out what someone else is doing on the business side of what's good for them, it's. How do you get there?
I mean, it's pretty.
Sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I was just going to say it's pretty amazing that our first guest to have comment on it with us is someone who has family from China. So, it's a good place to start, I think.
Yeah, it was. It's interesting, and even my family is divided on this whole thing, right? And it's it's not an easy situation for sure. And I mostly feel for these players who are put in that to speak on something that. They really should be up to the leaders of those leagues to deal with.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't want to lighten the situation at all, but basically I've just been watching a lot of Succession. So I'm trying to think about like the ruthless business aspect. And I'm like, guess what? This is a TV show and I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, no, I don't know if we're ever going to have a right answer to this situation.
Yeah, probably not. But I think it's going to be a pretty exciting season, and let's hope that this situation develops in the best, most amicable way possible. And Simon, we'll have you back soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
This is Adam Silver.
Okay, so I'm here with a Superman of humor. He is hilarious. He's tall. He has amazing reach and extension. A Dirk-like shot from the free throw line. It's a high release and it's money. This guy is he's been on the pod a million times. He's a best friend of mine. He's amazing. Give it up at home for your top comic, Adam Christie.
What's up, everybody?
Oh, yes.
Good to be back. Good to be back on my home podcast, I'll say.
Yeah.
Yeah. You were on the. Sorry, were you going to say something, Matt?
Well, no, I was just saying, yeah, he's one of our, our oldest guests that we've had on that's been on the most. He's been right from the beginning, way back in 2014 there.
That's right.
I remember when you used to call this the Basketball Jones.
yeah. But then we went to Atlanta for a couple years.
Yeah, and now who fucking knows what's going on with that?
I did listen to their new podcast. It was pretty good. It's called No Dunks.
No Dunks.
Yeah.
Cheers.
But Adam, let's talk about the most fun stuff right away. So you won Sirius XM's top comic this year.
I did, Freddie.
What the hell?
I don't know. Those guys are crazy.
Was it like a Russia thing? Like you were like openly asking for their help and all that, or?
Oh yeah, I was like, Hunter Biden is in on it. Both sides were in on it, really.
Good.
Me and Hunter Biden were like getting votes. It was big scam for sure. Big scam.
So how many stages are there like in the competition for Sirius?
So there was, I think, 4 stages. So I had to submit a video, and then 60 of us made it to a thing, and then I did a set, and then it got down to top 18, and then I got down to top 10, and then we did the thing at the Queen Elizabeth Theatre in Toronto, and now I'm going to Australia.
Oh my God! So the top 10, that was like all like one. That was like one big final show / competition, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like you're pretty steely, but were you nervous, or were you like thinking about the big picture or potentially what you could win, or were you like, whatever, this is another set?
No, I literally didn't watch anyone else's set out of nervousness. I like pounded 2 beers right after my set, and I played video games in the basement because I didn't want to hear anybody, or I was very so nervous.
So like, I feel like most comedians are, fairly in the moment and that sort of thing. Well, once they get going, but that transfer when you first get on stage is always a bit blurry. So like, did Ben Miner intro you? Were you like,
Ben Miner introed me?
Like, did you high five him, or were you like, Ben, get off the stage? I just got to start right away.
No, I think we shook hands. But when I did win, he like brought me up on stage and immediately was like, okay, give a speech, and gave me the mic, and I had no idea what to say. Like, I didn't thank my girlfriend or my mom or any of my friends. And then on the cab, we took a cab to Comedy Bar right after, and I went to Jordan, my girlfriend. I was like, I didn't thank you, and she went, yeah.
That's great. She definitely clocked it. She was like, instead of being oh no worries, she was like, yeah, you didn't thank me. That's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't a response like, oh my God, well, you just won, and who knows what's going through your head, and who knows what you're going to forget. No, it was like I know.
So,
and you know what? I think that she clocked it in deep, and it's going to come out at some point.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, I already referenced this with the first caller, but I've been watching a lot of Succession, and I think that she'll definitely use this to manipulate you, like at a key point in your life.
Yeah,
I hope so.
Adam, I was going to say that when you won, I was having my honeymoon in Cambridge, Ontario.
Oh, my hometown.
Yeah, so I was at the Langdon Hall.
Did you go to the pro-life museum in downtown Galt?
Oh my God, I didn't know that existed. I did do quite a tour of Cambridge, though.
Listen, downtown Galt is a beautiful place. I tell everyone to go to downtown Galt. It's wonderful. There's some nice things to do. There's an abortion museum. Well, I think it's one of these places that it's like pregnancy center, and then you go and they're like, you better have this baby.
Right.
Because I think a lot of people go and being like, can I have an abortion here? And they're like, lock the doors.
Yeah. They're like, we can talk to you about abortions and why you're evil, but no, there's no doctors here, ma'am.
Downtown Galt, baby.
Wait, so I got a few more like ridiculous questions about Sirius, if that's okay.
Okay.
So did you get a big check? I've never got a big check. You didn't get a big fake check?
No, and I mean, I can't say I'm disappointed, but I'm not, I would have been thrilled with a big check.
Yeah, because I didn't see it.
It would have been like a really cumbersome thing to bring around. And like I went to Comedy Bar to meet up with some people, and it really would have felt pretty kitschy if I got a small check mailed to me.
It was a huge gag in Happy Gilmore. We don't need to revisit it.
Yeah, you're right. You're right, Matt. Happy Gilmore covered that, I think. Wait, so when do you go to Australia?
I go to Australia in 2 weeks. I already bought a Nintendo Switch for the flight. It's 22 hours long. I have a day off. I have a day to get accustomed to Australia time, and then I do 4 sets. For God's sake, in Australia.
Wow. Australia.
That's gonna be. It's gonna be hot.
That's pretty. Hey, there's a lot of basketball fans in Australia. I'm sure we have. There. What's that, sir?
Nathan Jawai is there. Aussie Shaq.
Oh, Nathan Jawai. Yeah, he got drafted in.
I once saw Nathan Jawai I used to work at Noah's Natural Health Foods, and Nathan Jawai and his mother came in, and they were looking for a natural laxative.
Oh dear.
Oh yeah.
He's like, listen, these bowel movements are messing with my fragile heart.
Oh no!
I need to have a nice casual stool here if I'm going to be an NBA player, let alone Shaq.
Oh yeah, he had to retire because of his heart. Oh,
he did.
Sad.
Yeah, I think we can talk some ball. Are you ready?
Let's talk some ball.
What? We've both suffered a lot. We used to share season seats together, through most of the Bargnani era, and the Raptors won a goddamn championship. And I'm saying this to every guest, but congratulations, Adam, because you're a champion.
Thanks. You're a champion too. We're all truly champions.
And I think the person who wore that sweat the most and those bruises the most is our little charge taker, Kyle Lowry.
Yeah.
And he's been rewarded with some are calling it a legacy contract. Some are calling it just a good value contract as far as what you can do with it.
I think legacy contract is an unfair thing to say to Kyle Lowry. I do not think that this is a legacy contract.
Right. So you think it's unfair to compare it to what Kobe got and what Dirk got? Like Lowry still has too much to give. Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah, Lowry's amazing. He's incredible. And a year, it's like if we gave him 6 years, that's a legacy contract. Because how old is Lowry? He's 33.
Yeah, 33. Yeah.
Listen, I'm not so I'm happy with it. Are we all happy with the Kyle Lowry contract?
I'm very happy with it because I think that I think the thing I'm most happy about is that we're spending a lot of money when we don't need that money. And we can actually give Kyle a real, if we're both in agreement on this, a real legacy contract after the 31 expires. We can say, hey, you want 3 years or 4 years? $8 million a year or $10 million a year, we'll literally let you play till you retire, but you can't take up that much of a cap. So we made sure we got you a ton of money, but because he's not going to be worth $31 million next year, and this year, he's not going to be worth $33 million. But I've said this on the pod a bunch of times. We're in this weird place in the NBA where you're kind of overpaid or underpaid, but it doesn't exactly reflect on how good you are as a player.
Every contract that Masai gave anybody in the last 5 years is a good contract because we won a championship. There has been no bad contracts in the last 5 years.
I mean, that's when you were first saying that, I'm like, oh, that's a bit reductive. But it's actually not, because if the end goal is to win a championship and he's able to sign contracts that he can later trade or make use of, then every single thing he did led to a championship. So, did he make a mistake? Not really, right?
Yeah, it's like when Andrew Wiggins got traded for Kevin Love. When they won the championship, it's like, well, there's nothing you could say because they won.
Mm-hmm.
Even if Kevin Love's terrible for the rest of his career, you still won the championship. How many years does that buy you? I say at least 5.
Yeah, totally. And I think with Kyle, so since we very quickly agree that this is a good contract, let's jump to some of the rumor stuff here. Now, did you hear anything about Kyle kind of threatening to hold out if he didn't get this contract?
No, I didn't hear any of that. Is that substantial? Is that real?
I can't tell. A lot of the kind of sources that I trust were talking about it like it was real, but they were also kind of talking about it there isn't a quote that anyone can really pull. Adrian Wojnarowski talked about it, and Zach and Woj on their shared pod talked about this signing actually making Kyle more tradable. So that's something I think our first caller brought it up, and I think it's really on people's minds. So do you see this signing as a piece that is going to help us trade Kyle, or for you are those separate things?
No, I don't think Kyle's getting traded. I think this is a very like what you said, give Kyle this money. Because here's the thing, next year there's no free agents. If you look at all the unrestricted free agents, the top 10, 5 of them are Raptors. Mm-hmm. So I don't even mind if we sign, because after this year we're going to have to sign Pascal and we're going to have to sign Fred if we want. Because But like, it's not like if we have this money next offseason, we're going to be able to do anything with it. Because like, take a look. It's like Harrell is a free agent. Like nobody is there's no one who we can grab and still be competitive. It's either like run it back again and have this fun team that, in my opinion, can finish top 4, top 5 in the East, or we just start tanking for no reason.
So do you think that like Anthony Davis isn't going to give us a meeting? I'm just kidding, but yeah, he's the guy. He's the unrestricted guy, and then literally it falls off.
World to go to LA and drain them. It would be nuts if Anthony Davis doesn't stay in LA. It would be insane.
Even if he took meetings, that would be such a disrespect to LA.
Yeah.
Like, could you imagine? Yeah, he moved like heaven and earth. His agent's Rich Paul, and he's just like, I'm gonna, he takes meetings with like us, Phoenix.
Atlanta.
Yeah. But no, yeah, you're 100% right, and I think the number 2 unrestricted free agent was Kyle Lowry, and then I think it's like Gasol and Ibaka and Fred, and obviously Pascal's restricted. So I think I don't think Raptors fans need to worry about that.
I'm honestly, I wouldn't mind if we signed Mark for another year and signed Serge for another year. And, I don't know what to do with Fred VanVleet. Like, I guess we'll learn this year what we'd like to do or where
he's
Fred
the trickiest
stands.
one, I think.
Yeah.
And because I think when you're paying Kyle that much next year, it's not a problem, but it could be a problem if, say, Fred is like, I want 15.
Yeah.
Then all of a sudden you're kind of like, oh, well, do we think that Fred is a starting caliber point guard, and maybe even better than that? Because I think in today's NBA, you kind of need an all-star point guard, right? Like, did you have a real chance?
Like 15 of them.
Exactly. Like, there's so many. If you think about the amount of like wildly talented guards that don't make the Western Conference All-Star team every year, I think that you might look at a guy like Fred and say, you're awesome, but you need to be like twice as good as you are.
Yeah.
If we're gonna have you as a guy going forward. But I think we're me and you are. I think we're pretty optimistic, but we're also rational Raptors fans that have suffered a lot. So we're mostly in agreement with Raptors stuff. But you want to rifle through some like NBA awards?
I love it.
Okay. Let's do them all, baby. I got opinions on all these.
Okay. Oh my God. Okay, let's do it. Woo!
Let's do some JR. My God, Triple H. Okay. What about MVP, Adam Christie? Who is the MVP of the 2019-2020 season?
Okay, so I did a little research on this because going into this podcast, I want all Dunks heads out there to know. We were just going to talk about MVP, so if I'm a little rusty on the other ones, I think I have opinions on the other ones, but we just did MVP, and I wanted to say that my favorite here. Well, I'll start with my favorite. You'll say favorite.
Wait, let me also say this. Just not a disclaimer, but everyone knows the real calculation of this award is narrative.
Yeah.
So, if you want to say, oh, but this person's like better in the crunch, it's like we're talking narratives here.
Yeah.
So okay.
But my pick is very boring. I'm saying Giannis.
Well, I really thought we'd have more debate because that is also my pick, Adam.
But can I tell you my spicy pick?
Sure.
So I say Giannis because I open this up of the odds for most valuable player, and if I'm a betting man, I would not bet. I think it's going to be Giannis just because I think there's so many question marks. I think with Steph Curry, people saw how the Raptors guarded Steph Curry last year in the finals, and he's going to be double teamed all year. I think he's going to be crazy. Like, he's going to obviously have like a fucking 60-point game and a 50-point game. LeBron is up there. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Anthony Davis stays healthy. Harden is clogged up with Westbrook. Who knows what that's going to look like. Embiid, I think is going to be on a minutes restrictions, like not minutes, but like games. Same with Leonard.
Well, I think like Sean Woodley of the Locked On Raptors podcast, he kind of was the first person I heard say this. But is there a better candidate in the NBA for load management than Joel Embiid?
Oh,
like, there can't be, right? If you're Philly, you're like, play this guy like 40 games. Like, we're trying to win the championship. It doesn't matter.
They're going to steamroll through the East. I think Well, we might talk about this later. But I think if I'm a betting man, for God's sake, the odds on Paul, so the 2, 4, 6, 8, 12th favorite, the 10th and 12th favorite are Jokic and Paul George. So Giannis is a plus 300, so you got to bet $100 to maybe win 300. But Jokic at plus 1,200 and Paul George at plus 1,600, I think it could be. Both of those could be interesting picks.
Yeah,
if I'm a betting man, which I'm not.
Paul George, I think I'm out on that one just because he's already said he's missing at least 10 games at the start of the season. So that's pretty big. Because when you're think about when we were calculating, Harden versus Giannis last year, every game matters. And I think if you're going to win the MVP, you gotta the number seems like it's 72, 75 games.
Yeah.
So anyone doing any type of load management is going to be in tough.
My thing about that is I think people are going to forget about the beginning of the season, especially with the MVP, especially with narrative. I think that's the only reason. Listen, I wouldn't bet my life on Paul George, but what about Jokic? Is that interesting to you?
I think Jokic is, for me, I think he's a fantastic pick. If you're doing it, okay, I'll just say I'm Giannis because I don't think that he's done getting better. And I think that, yes, George Hill is a downgrade from Malcolm Brogdon, but I also feel like the Bucks are good enough to approach 60 wins. And Philly, I think they're a little less suited for the regular season than the Bucks. And then I also feel like the West is just going to be such a bloodbath. I'd be shocked if anyone got more than 53 wins. So
is AD missing time? Do we know yet?
AD, apparently everything on his thumb came back negative. See, I think he's him and
sprained,
LeBron.
Though, right?
Yeah, it's still sprained. And AD also misses time. He just missed his time. I think Steph and Harden are still there for me because I feel like Steph, if he could play 70 games, might break the 3-point record. And narratively, I think people love him and they want him to do well.
But
so
if Golden State finishes the season worse than 4th in the West, do you think they give the MVP to somebody who's...
Yes. I feel like if you're in the West and you want a shot at the MVP, I think you got to be top 3 teams.
Yeah.
So even if you're if you're the Clippers and you're 4th, Kawhi and Paul George are automatically out. I think if you're the Clippers or the Lakers especially, to be considered for MVP, you have to be 1st in the West. And the reason I think Houston could do that. It's kind of why I feel like there's still a chance with Harden.
I think so too. I agree with you.
But yeah, I'm kind of on the Giannis train, and I feel like if I was betting, I might be Giannis, Jokic, Curry, Harden, some kind of mixture there. But or Siakam, because come on. Okay, we spent some time on MVP, but I think we both prepped for that, right? So who's your defensive player of the year?
Defensive player of the year, I think it's probably Gobert, another boring one, unless I'm missing somebody. Unless Draymond Green plays out of his mind or something.
Yeah, I think Gobert is this. Okay, using the same logic I would for Giannis, I would say Gobert 100%. But has he won it 3 times already? Twice? I feel like he might have voter fatigue.
Yeah, maybe.
But also, they're going to be awesome on D. That's a tight one. I actually think, okay, I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna say Joel Embiid is my defensive player of the year.
That's pretty good. That's a pretty good call.
Because I think he could, do his load management thing, and people could they could be doing the whole thing where it's but look at the on-off metrics and look at how good they were on defense with Joel and look how good they were without. But yeah, Gobert.
Game 7 of the divisional finals last year. How good they are with Joel Embiid not on the floor. What was he, 2 minutes, and they were a minus 10 points? That's why they lost?
Yeah. Joel Embiid was because it still blows my mind, having rewatched all these series over and over and say Butler, man, Butler's the best. It's Butler wasn't even in the same category as an injured and sick Embiid. Yeah. I honestly don't know what game you're watching. Butler hit some tough fadeaways. Yeah. And I'm not even trying to slag Butler. He's awesome. He's going to have a big year. But he's not like an MVP guy. Embiid is. And like playing Embiid on the court, I'm like, this guy is just outrageous. Like he could cover Siakam, or he could just kind of do anything.
He's incredible, and he cares. He cried after they lost Game 7. I love
that.
Yeah.
I love that so much. Okay. So Gobert, Embiid. What about most improved? This is kind of a fun one.
I'm going to go, I don't even know how to say his last name. Bam Adebayo?
Yeah, Bam Adebayo. Yeah, that's a great one.
I'm going Bam Adebayo.
That's a fantastic pick because he
full-time center. Whiteside is out of the way.
Yep.
I think he's going to do it. He could average like 3 blocks or something crazy.
And he's that perfect type of player who hasn't like arrived yet.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. Okay, I'm going to say, I think I hate myself for saying this, but I'm going to say Jaylen Brown. Because I think there's going to be some unclogging in Boston, and there's going to be more defined roles, and I think the guys they have are going to do better, but I really already hate myself for saying that. So
why? Listen, it's fine. You don't have to hate yourself.
Okay, great. Thank you. I'm back on track. You know what I mean? Okay, coach of the year. Who's the coach of the year?
I think it's going to be Doc because he didn't win last year.
Oh, Doc's a good one. One. I will go with.
I really wanted to say Brad Stevens just to make you blow your gas.
Brad Stevens to just like run full speed off of my deck. I'm going to say the coach of the year goes to sleeper coach Bobby Brown.
Oh.
Wait, Bobby Brown? What's his first name? Brett Brown. But wait, Bobby Brown, it's not Bobby Brown.
No.
It is Brett Brown, coach of Philly.
Yep.
I think that, if they finish with a really good record, Dave Yeager, I think, or Quinn Snyder is a good sleeper pick for Utah.
Quinn Snyder would be good.
Stevens. What about sixth man? Who's your sixth man?
I don't even know.
Yeah, this one's hard.
Lou Williams, he wins every year, right?
Yeah, Lou. Yeah, I know. Someone's gonna force Lou Will to like start a bit more. I mean, it's got to be Vince Carter, right?
Maybe Terrence Ross.
Terrence Ross is actually a great pick because he's quietly, since the Raptors traded him to Orlando, just been, filling it up and doing what you're supposed to do as a shooter off the bench.
And if there's anyone that people are sick of voter fatigue-wise, is Lou Williams. He's always in the goddamn mix for this. It's always boring. Who cares? Yeah.
What awards are we missing? Oh, Executive of the Year award.
I don't know. The Lakers executive or the Clippers executive? What's his name?
Yeah, it's one of those two guys, right?
Yeah.
Did anyone else get like a giant free agent?
Rookie of the year? Are we both saying Zion?
I mean, it's gotta be Zion. Like, I feel like I could be like, Wayne Selden or something like that. But it's also okay. Here's my maybe rookie of the year. It's Rui Hachimura because I think that even with Beal there, he's going to get a lot of opportunity. And then when they trade Beal, they're going to be like, we literally have no one. Can you please show us something, sir?
Who's their center that everyone's excited about? The Wizards.
Is it Thomas Bryant?
Oh yeah, I think it's Thomas Bryant. Yeah, that team's going to be so bad.
Wizards are a truly dreadful roster.
Who is your NBA Finals pick?
Who
is Freddie Revis's East and West and winner in the NBA Finals?
Okay, I'm gonna make a homer one and then like an actual one.
Okay.
So homer one is Raptors versus Rockets.
Yep.
Non-homer one is Philly versus Rockets.
Philly Rockets. I'm going rematch. Kawhi, Embiid.
Oh, that's a really good pick. I thought you were going to say Raptors Golden State. I was going to be like, oh shit.
No, Philly Clippers, and I think Philly wins the title.
Yeah, I know. Like, I have a feeling that we're all going to be kind of like talking a lot about when and how did the process end or did it not? And is this a success? because it's kind of interesting when you think about like when they started the process, like all the different things they've been through. I mean, this is a longer conversation, but if they win it, if Embiid wins a championship and his nickname's the process, I think someone's gonna like give Hanky a duffel bag of gold, right?
Of gold. Okay, well, what's your hottest take before we go? What's your hottest?
Ooh, that's a good one.
Unpopular take of this year.
Ooh, that's okay. So far, I'm trying not to be a hater.
Okay.
But so far, I feel like it's the hottest take just because I'm hearing I'm not hearing this opinion, and that's that the Clippers role players aren't good.
Oh yeah.
And I think I must be wrong because it seems like everyone disagrees with me, but I think Lou and Beverly are both one-dimensional. I think Zubac and Harrell are borderline starters. I think JaMychal Green is, wouldn't crack our rotation for the Raptors. Mm-hmm. And I think like a guy like Mo Harkless is also like a borderline NBA player. So Shamit I like. I like a lot of the machinations they have, and Paul George Kawhi is obviously, basically as top heavy as it gets. And that's like elite perimeter defense. But I think when they hit the playoffs, a guy like Jokic is going to destroy them. And I think that a guy like Anthony Davis is going to look at Harrell and Zubac and he's going to be like, I'm going for 40 tonight.
Oh, he's going to feast on Zubac. Zubac is a guy who, like, I think is it's like Lakers bait. It's like because he was like drafted in the second round by the Lakers.
Yes.
Like, oh, he's good. It's like, who cares about what? Like what? See, that's hyped up about Zubac.
That's my hot take. Everyone's like, oh, Zubac. It's like, I think he's not as good as Pirtle.
No,
like
no.
What are you trying to make me smoke?
I mean, he's young. Is he? Did he bulk up? Because he was always way too skinny.
I mean, again, like, there's no real problem with Zubac. It's just that
he has a cool name. If his name was Ivan Smith, no one would give a fuck. But he's Zubac, and that's a cool name, and I think people want to buy in on Zubac.
Ivica Zubac averages 5 points on his career.
Mm-hmm.
No. So last year he was. I'm looking at it now. He's 9.5 points, 5 rebounds in 20 minutes a game.
Great.
So he averaged a block a game.
That's pretty average.
Like he's what did he average? Like points?
No, I said that's pretty average. That's like.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty average, and I don't want to be a hater, and I think Kawhi is like just a ridiculous special player that I'm never gonna doubt. But I do think that there's also a lot of talk about how you're just kind of plugging Paul and Kawhi into this like ready-made team. And I don't want to be all dunked on here, but they overperformed more than any other team last year.
Oh, damn.
Their point differential. And was a big part of that? Gallinari and Tobias Harris.
I don't want to be all dunked on here, but let's start this podcast again in the middle of a conversation and you don't know if they know that the mics are on or not. Shout out to Dunked On Podcast. But no, I think
what's your hot take?
What? Oh well.
What's your hot take? Sorry,
I could see hating the Clippers. I do think Beverly's great. I think Lou Williams is great. I think Harrell's great. I think they're going to be fine, and I think they could go to the finals. My hot take: Lakers are not making the playoffs.
They're not going to the playoffs.
It's going to be a disaster.
Playoffs?
They're not making it.
Wow.
If one of those guys get injured, that team is not a 500 team. The team's trash. Dwight Howard plays for the Lakers. Dwight Howard and Rajon Rondo might start for the Los Angeles Lakers.
I will say they need to jettison Rondo if they're going to be competitive.
Who's their backup? That white guy?
I think they have like Hart.
Who's the Lakers starting five? Okay, so say if Anthony Davis is injured. Is their starting five Rajon Rondo, Danny Green, Kyle Kuzma, LeBron James, and
JaVale or Howard?
Dwight Howard or JaVale McGee? Is that a 500 team, Freddie Rivas? Does that team, if that's your team, are you winning 42 games, 41 games?
No, you're not. The only thing I'll say about that, though, is like, what type of LeBron are we getting? And do LeBron and AD get injured at the same time?
That's going to be a nightmare. And I think it's going to happen. Like, this is all betting. Listen, if they both play like 70 games, sure, they're going to make the playoffs. But AD's already injured. AD, like, how many games? I'm going to look this up. How many games has AD played in the last, like, 5 years? Davis.
I think the year before last, he had like a 70 game season or something like that. But he's generally, it's weird. He has no structural damage, but he gets a lot of like nicks and knacks that legitimately keep him out for a while.
So Anthony Davis has played 70 or more games twice in his 7-year career.
Right.
Last year, he played 56 games. And a lot of that was due to he just didn't want to play anymore. But I don't know. And LeBron doesn't really play defense anymore. LeBron is 34.
Just as a counter for you, you know, do you think perhaps he'll be able to play more if he's expected to do less?
LeBron?
No, AD.
I don't think he can do less. I think this team, they need to be like playing their hearts out to keep their team in the game, because when they're on the bench, Alex Caruso's running the offense. This team's terrible.
Okay, and I'm just gonna throw in a little hot take to your hot take, and
I love it.
It's only because of one preseason highlight package I saw this morning. But they
maybe it's Caldwell Pope. Go ahead.
They have Kostas Antetokounmpo. He's 21, and he looked great in one preseason game.
I mean, sure.
Yeah, I know. It's.
They used to say like Bruno has the same body as those guys, like maybe a little bit smaller, but you know.
Yeah, and for you, does it not help at all that Alex Caruso is Balky from Perfect Strangers?
I mean, it does matter to me.
Oh man. Well, I think that's a good place to end it, dude.
I love it. Hot take: Lakers are making the playoffs.
Hey, congratulations on Sirius. This is
thanks, Freddie.
Congrats,
Come on,
man.
Good Lord.
Guys.
Listen, I'll promote this on my Twitter, and I'll throw out there's Sirius XM has been so nice after the thing, and they're doing a 14-day trial. You could go listen to sports radio and JFL Canada, which supports Canadian comedy and puts our albums up. So
what's your album?
I'm a company man.
Adam,
what's that?
What's your album so everyone can go listen to it? Your album so everyone can go listen to it and download it?
My album is called General Anxiety Disorder. It is on it's on CD Baby. If you go to CD Baby, that's the thing I make the most money on if you want to buy the album. It's also on iTunes and the Google Play.
Ooh.
I thought for a second you were trying to tell us like you can have it in CD form if you want.
CD form. Jewel case. A disgusting jewel case that will break in your hands.
Do you have a Walkman? That's perfect. Because this is the album for you.
Remember jewel case like towers? Like people they're towers of CDs.
I had a few of those, yeah.
That's what Matt's basement looks like in Newmarket.
Does it? Matt, I feel like you had a lot of CDs and maybe a CD tower. I
definitely had a tower. I had like a couple different options too for those towers. So
like the low rise,
the ones that are like more horizontal, and then you got the ones that are more vertical.
Do yourself a favor and just Google CD tower if you're listening to this, and just throw up on the goddamn streets. CD towers are disgusting. Jewel case CDs are disgusting. They're the worst format of anything that's ever happened. Fuck you, Jewel CDs.
Wait, at the Rivas household, we used to have one of those like 5 CDs at a time, and it was like a changer.
Oh yeah.
And then it would get broken and just spin around real fast.
Like
and you'd be like, it won't play Limp Bizkit, Mom. Okay, well, I think we better move to our next caller. But
God bless you. Sorry if I took up too much time. I've been Cone from Sum 41, and you're listening to Confederacy of Dunks with Matty D and Freddie R.
Oh yeah, baby.
NBA.
Okay, how's it going? We are back, and I believe it's his second time on the podcast. He's a writer and producer for CBC. Give it up at home for Derick Deonarain. How's it going, buddy?
It's good, man. Thank you for having me a second time. I appreciate it.
Oh, man. I just, the first question I got to ask is, did I mess up the pronunciation of your name?
No, no. You were actually spot on this time, shockingly. I was actually expecting you guys to call me Kevin. So the fact that you didn't is a big bonus in my book.
I'm probably way too proud of myself right now. But I was going to read the name as I said it, but I'm like, you know what? It's phonetic, Freddie. You made a mistake.
It is, yes.
You made a mistake a couple months ago. Everything's going to be okay.
Well, you nailed it. You nailed it.
How you doing, man? Is everything going well?
I'm good, man. Just busy. You know, we've got an election coming up, so a lot of important decisions, a lot of important news to cover. So just been busy grinding with that. And, of course, a message to anybody listening out there, please go out and vote. Even if you don't like the options, you can cast that as well. So
that's right.
You have a choice. You have the freedom. You have the ability and the right to do that legally in this country. So you should absolutely exercise that right.
100%. I don't think I've missed an election, even municipally, since I was eligible. I think nice. I was traveling when I was 18, and I think I missed a mayoral election, but that was a long time ago. That might have been, who knows? But yeah, it's very important. It's very easy as well. I already did. I live in the Parkdale High Park riding, and there's a lot of good candidates to choose from here. I guess I'll tell the listeners who I voted for. I voted for NDP's Paul Taylor. I think he's a really good candidate, and I'm really excited for him to represent Parkdale High Park. And I voted in the advance polling. So I'm not sure if that's eligible anymore, but it's really easy to vote. It's very short as well. And also you feel kind of patriotic and cool, or at least I do. Maybe I'm a nerd. I don't know. But go out there and vote, people.
Yeah, you got to vote. Come on.
Should we start talking some basketball or what?
Yes, absolutely. Let's get into it.
Okay, so there's a lot of new faces for the Raptors. There's going to be all sorts of kind of rotation battles going on this year, but we've seen 3 games now in the preseason. Or if you're a super hardcore fan, you watch some of their scrimmages in Laval, Quebec. If you did that, you're probably a basketball writer. So hello, No, yeah. What's your takeaway on some of the new faces? Here, I'll just grab one for you, Derick. What's your thoughts on Rondae Hollis-Jefferson so far?
I've been a little bit neutral on him. I'm not super high, but I'm not super low. Only because I feel one, as anybody will tell you, this is such a small sample size to look at with Rondae Hollis with this team. And, we have to be mindful of the fact that he's coming over from Brooklyn. He is an entirely new cast, an entirely new position, entirely new coach, new country, everything. And that's going to take some time to get used to because he's not a guy that like a Kawhi or a Danny Green where you can literally just plug and play. He's still raw. He still needs time to develop. It was good to see him get some touches out there and get some run with the guys and, play a little bit with Pascal and play a little bit with Fred and then also play, with some of the bench guys as well and, get some run with, the Stanley Johnsons and Cameron Paynes of the world who are also, in the same boat that he's in currently where they're all kind of, learning a new system, trying to figure things out and see where they fit, on this Raptors squad as they try to defend an NBA title.
Yeah, Rondae's looked, he definitely has the energy guy feel. And, I've heard a lot of talk about, how poor of a 3-point shooter he is, which is definitely relevant in today's game. But I think fans really should be thinking about Rondae as a guy who plays bigger than he is.
Yes.
I think he'll be playing a lot at power forward. Or if he's playing at the 3, I think, Nurse will would do well to make sure that we have shooters at the 4 and the 5, or shooting on the court to surround him.
Yeah.
I think it is relevant that he's not a good shooter from 3, because there's quite a bit of those guys on the roster this year, but he creates. He's out there and he's going to make stuff happen, and he's a pretty tenacious defender. So I think he'll be a plus on the court.
Yeah, I think he'll help. I think the biggest thing for him and what I'd like to see as they move forward, because I actually think he's got the highest potential out of the 3 wings that we've picked up this summer, between Rondé, Stanley Johnson, and Cameron Payne. I actually think he'll probably be the best out of the 3, and I think part of that is age and skill and tenacity and like some of the intangible things. But I think also at the end of the day, he's a guy that just gets after it, right? Like, I mean, when you look at a guy like Stanley Johnson or Cameron Payne, they've never been known as guys who get after it. Like Stanley, on the defensive end, but I just think Rondé he's got a bit of dog in him that you love to see it. You love to see in our guys, especially when you're looking at, younger guys who are trying to strap their way into finding a role, on a championship team or even on a playoff team, for that matter. And so I think he's going to be a scrappy player. I think he's going to hustle. He's going to fight. Will it translate to a ton of points on the stat sheet? No, but will his plus or minus be good or bad? I think that's where you'll see it. And it's the little things, maybe it's a deflection that he doesn't get the steal, but he helps lead to the steal, the steal. Or maybe he gets like the hockey assist or something along those lines. He's not going to be the guy that's finishing everything for you, but I think he can clean up a couple things on the glass, and if he can get his transition game down and learn how to finish more consistently in transition, I think he'll be solid.
He's got a little bit of dog in him. I think is like the best intro to Rondé Hollis Jefferson. Yeah. And is he I'm just kind of throwing this out there. Is there any chance he becomes like a one of the JYDs? Is he a junkyard dog eligible? Because I know Damari Carroll is I'm the junkyard dog as well, and everyone's like, are you? I don't know if Damari really was. I don't think he was. I don't play like that.
He didn't play like that, but I do think Rondé could be. I think in a best case scenario right now for the Raptors, if he could develop, and this is going to be a little bit of a throwback for people who've been following the team for a long time, but if he could develop into a Keon Clark type of player.
Oh, man.
Like somebody that's just really tenacious, long, gets after it. He's not going to give you 20 a game. Maybe he'll give you 10 or 12, but, if he ends up in a good role and he can flourish into, just channeling that tenacity and that defense and that fight into a couple elbow jumpers here and there, a couple scrappy rebounds here and there, and then getting his hands on defenders in the ball when they're going up, I think he'll be solid. I think that's what I'd love to see him become, and obviously something greater too. But if that ends up being a role that he plays, that's not a bad role for the Raptors at all.
It's his 5th year. He's going into his age 25 season, it looks like. And by the way, if you're curious about Keon Clark, just do yourself a favor and YouTube Keon Clark dunks it on guy's soul or dunks it on guys, because he has some major crams. He definitely was one of those guys where sometimes he'd be like, oh, he's not doing much, and then out of nowhere he would just have the nastiest jam over somebody's head, and it was wonderful. Okay, let's move on to Stanley Johnson, because he's a pretty big acquisition. He's a high draft pick. I think there's a lot of expectations, and I'll just throw this out here. Me and Simon talked a little bit about this when we were ranking the top 10 Raptors this season. So, who were projecting, but Stanley has disappointed me. I understand, I wasn't expecting him to come over and be a shooter. And like you said, the sample size is preposterously small, but I just don't really see his route to being a key contributor on this team.
I agree.
At this point.
Yeah. Yeah,
just because we got a lot of guys like McCaw, Jefferson. There's a lot of really good kind of, defensive energy guys. And if Stanley isn't going to make good decisions out there, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I kind of feel for him because he kind of had a little bit of a rough go in Detroit, and then, has been bounced around and ends up here and is looking for a fresh start. And I think I trust in the Raptors developmental team, and I trust in their trainers and their staff and the coaching. I do think that he can develop into something credible and quality for this Raptors team, but I think he needs to spend some time in the 905. I don't see it on the NBA level right now. I've been disappointed as well in how he's looked so far, and I know it's not fair, but when you have guys like Terrence Davis outperforming you, I think that kind of speaks volumes to where your game or your head is at right now. And, perhaps it's just a matter of, maybe it's a confidence thing. Maybe it's just getting on a roll and getting some wins and some games in the G League under him where he feels like, I can do this. I can play at the NBA level because I'm destroying these G League guys and I need to just fight my way back into the roster. But right now, I don't see him in Nick Nurse's 9-man rotation. I just can't see him getting any meaningful minutes, especially not when you have Rondé there, who's at least maybe he hasn't played what we think he could, but he hasn't been as disappointing as Stanley Johnson.
I think so, and OG is also looking pretty good, which is kind of it doesn't really look like OG is. I thought maybe it would be like a competition with these guys, but it seems like OG is a cut above. So I think he's a cemented guy in the rotation, and yeah, just to move on to the last kind of new acquisition guy. Well, I guess we could talk about Isaiah Taylor, but I feel like Isaiah Taylor is meant for the G League. Yeah. He's his trajectory is it's a couple year trajectory, and that's okay. But Cameron Payne. And okay, I'm not. I think you have to be so talented to make any NBA roster. So that's my caveat. Yeah. But to me, I'm I don't see any route for this guy even being on the team.
Yeah.
Is that too harsh?
I don't. It's harsh. I think it's fair. I think it's. You're pretty spot on. I don't know where he would fit. If I don't really know where Stanley fits, I don't know how Cameron fits into that either. There's too many moving pieces and too many people that are quality players that are just as good, if not better, from a raw talent perspective, but also work harder or better or smarter than Cameron Payne. And I don't know. Again, he's a guy that I also think would benefit from going to the G League. I think he's worked on his shot, and shockingly, from seeing some of the scrimmaging in Laval and seeing some of his games in the summertime from obviously the Rico Hines workouts that they did as a team, he looks all right. I think he can hit an open shot if you had him there, but the mechanics don't look great. It just feels like he's a step behind on everything, and he still feels like a guy who is still playing college basketball at the NBA level and hasn't caught up to the speed at all, or has adjusted the way that you would hope that he would. Look, if he can't find meaningful minutes on an OKC team with depleted rosters that were filled with injuries and Russell Westbrook who's averaging a triple-double, I don't know how much better you can do in Toronto, with the likes of Pascal and Kyle and Fred and Norm and OG and Serge and Mark. Where the other 5 spots, where would he exist on that? And even if he does, I don't think he sees the floor really at all.
Yeah, I mean, it always feels like, it's like, stop, he's already dead. When a player has been in the league a couple of years and it seems like they kind of can't cut it. But I think it's that elite and it's that hard. Yeah. And he hasn't really, shown enough. And I think, you've mentioned the G League twice now, and I think it's kind of going to be more integral to this year than I think it's even been in previous years. And that's wild to me, knowing, we've produced defensive players of the years. We've won championships in the G League. But I think this year, if we're running the same system as the big club and the small club are running the same system, you're really going to have about 4 to 6 guys on the G League team have a real chance of being a meaningful, player on the big squad. So I think there's quite a few guys that can see G League time, that are going to be under contract from the big club and also be able to have like a meaningful role if they kind of like demonstrate that. Because even a guy like Malcolm Miller, he's been good at the G League. Like he deserves a shot.
And then you look at guys like Chris Boucher, who was the MVP. And it's
and the defensive guy, the player of the year as well. He won both awards last year. So
yeah.
So wait, who else is new? I think let's just let's jump to the most exciting guy, like Terrence Davis, right? Like
yes.
Let's not get carried away here, but this guy is like A, for real, and B, pretty exciting, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm of two minds here. On one hand, he's still a low draft pick. So expectations should still be set very low. Actually, sorry, he's not even a draft pick. My apologies. He didn't even get drafted.
Yeah.
So your expectations should be set fairly low. Oftentimes, there are always diamonds in the rough, and the Raptors happen to always seem to find them. But I would still set expectations low, because if you Bruno the whole situation and, try to push somebody who's clearly a little too green but has a lot of raw talent and skill, they're just not going to develop in the way that you want them to, because you can't force experience. You can't. It's something that has to come, and it'll only come with time. And I think, Terrence Davis is promising, but I would say let's keep expectations low, especially looking at the logistics of this Raptors squad and who he might be playing behind, because size-wise, he's a little bit of a tweener. He's a little too. He's a good-sized point guard, like a great-sized point guard, and an all-right-sized shooting guard, but that's about it. And I think he's got like an NBA level shot. I think I love his aggressiveness, because he's not afraid to attack. He's not afraid of big moments. He's not afraid of playing, whether it's in Japan or a regular preseason game here. Like clearly that spotlight doesn't bother him in any way. I just think he lacks the experience. He rushes things a little bit. But there's a lot to be excited about there. And, beyond just catching a body out there on the Houston Rockets.
Oh, that was so good.
He's still a kid, and we have to give him time. And I think there's some potential there. Like he could be a really, really good role player. And the fact that he has an NBA level shot already is very good for him. In trying to possibly crack the rotation. His aggressiveness is great. I think we don't know what he is defensively. I don't think he's great. I don't think he's bad either. I think he's an average defender. And I think it's just a lot of things that will get cleaned up with time and experience. Little things like rushing pick and rolls, or, things that you might chalk up to first game jitters. I think, I don't know if I see him as an NBA caliber point guard, but I could see him as a significant backup role player down the line if he continues to develop the way that he is and learns some skills and really works on his craft over the years.
Yeah, no, I think you basically nailed it with the description of Terrence Davis, because we are excited, but we do have to kind of remain patient. And I think for me, even right off the bat, all of the Fred comparisons are tough, because Fred's, rise was very specific, and it also took a couple years. Like Fred, last year wasn't his first year on the team. You know what I mean? So, and Terrence Davis, he's kind of betting on himself, but I also think as a player, he's different. Like he's quite a bit bigger than Fred.
Oh, so absolutely.
I think, I'm with you on, I see more kind of offense than defense with him. And defense is usually a thing where, you can be kind of like a dogged defender, but it takes a lot of IQ. So it might take a little while, but I'm seeing more of like and obviously this is like, a flattering comparison, but I'm seeing more like Marcus Smart in Terrence Davis than I am necessarily Fred. I don't think he's like he doesn't seem like he wants to shoot threes constantly. He seems like he's a really kind of like, feels the game out type guy. Uses his size and strength. So
I think both of them are very much like a bet on yourself, guys, but just because you have a chip on the shoulder doesn't mean it's the same one. So exactly. I think they may be cut from the same cloth, but the chips on Fred's shoulder versus Terrence's are very different, especially for Fred, who is already a small guy, but is undersized for a small guy. He's 5'10", 5'11" on a good day. We probably have friends that are taller than that we play pickup basketball with.
We do, yeah.
But aren't nearly as capable or skilled as Fred is. So for Fred, it's a lot of, overcoming, this David versus Goliath situation. Whereas I think for Terrence, he's looking more of it as like, well, there's a large mountain in front of me and I'm going to have to go climb it. And I think, they're both, again, solid guys. And I think Fred is exactly the type of player that should be around Terrence Davis, because I think only good things will come of that.
Yeah. Okay. Two more guys here, and let me just say, because I love when people talk about like the like NBA size versus who you're playing pickup, because just a reminder of how hard it is to be in the NBA. I am all of the same characteristics of Kyle Lowry, same age, same height, and same weight, and none of like it ends like everything. All the similarities end immediately after that. Muscle, you know what I mean? Like abilities, experience, basically everything. But yeah, it's tough to be in the NBA, and it's definitely not just about size. Because I would get, I think Kyle would, he would eviscerate me in ways I didn't even know were possible if we ever played basketball together.
Probably. Yeah.
But okay, yeah. So two more guys. Let's do. Well, I mean, I don't know. Do you have anything? Or I guess, have you noticed anything about Dewan Hernandez?
Not really. I mean, again, much like Terrence Davis, like, keep your expectations low. He was a late draft pick, and he was redshirted the year before because of injury. So it's tough. You don't know what you're getting. He seems very raw. He's got good hands for a big man, which I'll give him that, and good size as well. But it's way too early to see what he might become. I think he's a guy who will really benefit from being in the G League. And same thing with, Matt Thomas. Like, look, I love the fact that everyone, is on the Alex Wong 99.9 or 99.8%, 3-point shooting range. But I don't see it with him. I think he's a good shooter. And I love that he practices his shots as if every shot were, in-game mechanics. So the speed, the cutting off the pick and rolls, the hedging. Like, I love seeing him practice those things because that's exactly what he'd be used for in-game. But, yeah, defensively, he's not that great. I mean, he was getting killed by John Lucas III at Rico Hines pickup. So that should tell you something. And John Lucas is like 5'9". Most people know him for LeBron jumping over him to catch a lob when he was on the Heat. And that's about it. So if he's getting killed by that point guard, I can't see him doing very well against a lot of other NBA level point guards or backups for that matter. But he can shoot the lights out, which is amazing. And that is key, when you're looking at the end of your bench and you're looking for some, quick offense, some microwave offense where you can get a quick, 6 or 9 points off of, a couple corner threes from this guy. I think that's what he is. He's not Danny Green, so don't expect to see that at all. He's more like an NBA level refined Brady Heslip. If you follow Canada basketball, that's essentially what Matt Thomas is a really, really good 3-point shooter. You trust him a little bit to handle the ball here and there, can make good reads, is a smart guy, but is very much a one-dimensional player at this moment. And that's not to say that he won't develop into something more. But right now, I think that's my comparison is oddly enough to a guy who's not in the NBA, which is Brady Heslip, who's a great shooter, solid for Canada basketball, but still has a little bit of ways to go.
Yeah, I've been pretty impressed with Matt Thomas's composure. He definitely seems like one of those guys where, if his initial action is taken away, he's fairly calm. But again, once the NBA season starts and it's really like every defender is that much taller, that much stronger, that much more ferocious, the speed of the game is huge. You really have to kind of carve out your own area. And I think that if he was on some team, like if he had a Capono scenario where it was like Shaq and Wade are creating this much space that you're actually wide open, you'll probably be okay. But I think with this Raptors team, you're going to need a lot of multi-talented people. So I think he'll have to really kind of acclimatize to the speed of the game and not get destroyed on defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I feel like that's good for the Raptors new guys. Let's touch base on a couple other things here. So, how are you feeling? Let's jump over to Kyle Lowry. Now we covered the extension a little bit earlier in the episode, but are you pretty high on the extension? Are you kind of like you not into it or?
No, I like it. I think it was a good extension. I think it makes him more tradable. If we wanted to go that route. But I also think that it's continuity, right? Like Masai said it best, he is the engine that runs this team. And that's not to say that Fred isn't capable, because I think this is totally Fred's role to take at some point, especially if Kyle ends up being moved. But I like it. I think you reward Kyle for, the 7 years that he's spent here, the fact that he's re-upped twice, now technically I guess 3 times at this point, and you reward him for his loyalty. And I think, look, like if it wasn't going to be DeMar, then it had to be Kyle. And I'm more than happy with paying him that money for an extra year on his contract. And if we move him, great. If we keep him, great. I think it's a win-win for Masai. I think at the end of the day, Masai is looking at this thing like 3D chess, and a lot of us just look at it like it's checkers. And there are more moves that may come, whether that's this season or next season or in the off season. We'll have to wait and see. But I think it's a win-win for everyone. Kyle's happy. He gets paid. He gets rewarded for the things that he's done, which has helped deliver a championship to this city and to this country. But also keeping in mind that, look, we can move you to a contender if we choose to, if you want to, and we'll still be able to get valuable assets back for you. Yeah,
I mean, I think we covered this a little bit, and I basically agree. You're echoing our other guests as well, and it's pretty much a win-win-win because that's how Masai rolls. But yeah, and I think the thing I want to emphasize the most of your opinion there is the continuity, and I think that this is going to be a year where people really kind of like the Raptors team last year. It's funny to me that people don't really think there was continuity there because that was such a big part of our success. And, whether it's Serge and Kyle just having like such perfect chemistry or, Lowry being the first person to discover that it's like, hey, just look up because Pascal is running. And just those types of things, I think he imparts all of that and he just makes everyone around him better. And I can't really follow any logic that with folks who say that, they don't want that with our team. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me to throw away a guy that's this good unless you get something better in return. And I mean, if it's a pick, if you're really interested in trading Kyle for a pick, I think you should be thinking like top 5. And I don't think that's going to happen. So for me, it's like I want Kyle to retire as a Raptor, and I don't want to see him in another jersey. That's kind of where I'm at.
I would love to see him retire as a Raptor, and then see that starting role go to Fred. I think that he's earned it, he's deserved it, and having Kyle be essentially an equivalent to a lifer in a Raptors uniform is the perfect fairy tale ending. Obviously, all good things come to an end at some point, and maybe we won't get that ending, but I would love to see that. I'm not saying give him a Kobe type contract where you're clearly like, this guy's on his last legs, but we're going to overpay him anyways. I think this was that 1 year overpay, and, perhaps he's maybe more willing to take a back seat in a couple summers from now when Masai's freeing up the money to sign a guy like Giannis, possibly. Who knows?
Okay, let's hit up one last little topic here because you had brought up earlier kind of like load management league wide, and this is something I'm like just so fascinated in. Like, you know, from a player empowerment perspective, to just like how a body works in the NBA and what we expect of our athletes, especially when you have sports like baseball where it's like, oh yeah, the pitcher plays once a week. What, are you mad? And then you go to basketball, it's like, well, I expect LeBron to play every single night, 40 minutes. And it's kind of like, I think this year might be an interesting referendum on, you know, on that sort of thing. So I hope I didn't, you know, color this question too much with my own opinion. But where are you, or what are you interested about as far as it comes to load management?
I mean, for me, I'm looking at load management through multiple perspectives. So I think it's looking at it in the sense of what this could mean for more teams down the line. So with the season coming up, are more teams going to take that approach? Are more teams going to start, you know, scratching healthy guys? Because let's face it, like Kawhi's situation was specific to Kawhi. So right. It works for him, right? Because he was dealing with health issues. He was coming off a season where he basically didn't play. And so the load management made complete sense for him.
Right.
However, are teams going to start doing that now where they're like, look, you know, we want to save LeBron for the playoffs. We've got AD. We've got a bunch of young guys. How about we just get the best of LeBron for 65 games instead of 82, right? And our players going to start putting that into contracts, especially when you look at what's coming down the line with a lot of these guys. You know, I worry that, you know, people could use the argument that, you know, hey, our guy's aging, you know, a la, you know, San Antonio Spurs with Tim Duncan and Tony and Manu, and we're just going to load manage them so that they're ready for the, you know, prime time when it counts in the playoffs. And so fans kind of get, you know, a little bit gypped in the end when they are paying tickets for, you know, whether you're a season seat holder or just coming to see a game from wherever you're located at. And you won't be able to see these star players right. because of something like load management in a situation where they're healthy, right? And I think that's really the concern, because we're starting to see, you know, a variation of load management on the college level, right? Like you look at a guy like John Morant. He did not participate in any real workouts or games up until the other day. Same thing with Zion, right? A lot of these guys are foregoing, you know, playing in certain situations because they know that they're, you know, going to be guaranteed a lottery pick and more money and more possibilities to earn that money down the line, and they're not going to take risks for it, right? So now you're not going to see those guys come out in summer league, and that's kind of disappointing because, you know, you want to see the best of the best play. You want to see these young guys and these rookies and these top lottery draft picks go up against each other. And now it's essentially going to be turned into a bunch of G League guys and guys who didn't get drafted fighting for a spot. And that's great for them, but it's not great as far as a competition and development standpoint, in my opinion. I understand, right. You know, you're a young kid, go get your money, provide for your family. Amazing. I'm all in support of that. But at the same time, some of these things are also going to stifle the systems and programs that we have in place for additional player development. And it'll be because of things like load management and wanting to reserve players' talents and time and opportunities for, you know, the main roster and for the regular season and for the playoffs. So I get it. It's a business decision, and a lot of front offices will have to make those choices, but I'm curious to see how the league will have to handle that moving forward.
I mean, yeah, I think like everything you said is super interesting, especially when you think about how specific the Kawhi situation really was. And, you know, we're Raptors fans. We won a championship. So, like, it's going to be hard to tell me, you know, as a fan, where it's like, let's say with Siakam in the line, it's like, I think I'm going to be pretty, you know, averse to saying, yeah, let's load manage him because we could win another ring. And if the prize is that big, or like you said with Zion and Ja, the prize is millions and millions of dollars, or risk a tragedy where you don't get that money. It's kind of like it ends up being a bit of a no-brainer. And yeah, it does kind of fall back to like the system and what do we do? Because I'm also of the belief that as far as the load management, if you make less games in the NBA, guess what? There's still going to be load management.
Oh, 100%. Because
as long as the strategy is save your guys till the end if you want to win it all, then I don't really see a way around it, because you could look at Durant, right? He had to play too many minutes in the first round against the Clippers. And he was kind of thinned out. And Golden State didn't play for the marathon because they invested in superstars and not a bench. And the Raptors didn't do that. We played the marathon game and we won it all. And maybe that's an asterisk, but at the same time, it's like it just worked. So, yeah, if you're Philly, I don't see how you don't load manage Embiid. If you're the Lakers, I don't see how you don't load manage LeBron. But at the same time, yeah, if you're live in Atlanta or Memphis or some place that isn't a competitive team, you won't get the superstars, and I think that's kind of tough. If you're a good team, odds are you will get the superstars because they need those superstars to still beat you. But it should be something that will evolve, and it's going to change the NBA.
Yeah, absolutely, and not only that, but I actually think it's going to change for a lot of people in sports, right? Like, I could see a league like the MLB doing something like that, where it's like, look, we have Stanton or Aaron Judge or whoever, right? And say, look, we play 160 plus baseball games in a season. My guy's going to sign a contract so that he only has to play 100.
Right.
And we're going to rest him, load manage him, and keep him ready and fresh so that by the time we're ready to go to a World Series, he's running on, full power. So, I could see it in that. Or even in hockey, for example, right? Like, you look at, some of the past Stanley Cup winners. You look at, the Pens. You look at the Kings. They were 8th seeds. They weren't top seeds in their conference. And yet when it was all said and done, they were destroying their opponents in the playoffs and ultimately won a title, because to them it was almost like, look, seeding doesn't entirely matter to us because we know we have the talent and the skill, and maybe we're injury riddled, maybe we're not. But in hockey, it actually would make sense to load manage guys, especially if you know that a guy plays only 60 or 70 games every year and he's guaranteed to miss 10 with an upper or lower body injury.
Yeah.
And with a game as physical as hockey, I could absolutely see them adopting load management because it makes the most sense for such a physical game. So
and they already load manage their goalies. They got
exactly.
It. No goalie plays 82 games. That would be a recipe for disaster.
Exactly. And so I think like what we've seen in the NBA this past year is not an asterisk. It's not an outlier. I think this is going to continue to be the pattern and trend. And I think it's something that we need to watch for, because I think as fans, you want to see the best of the best play, especially when it matters most. But for the average person who, enjoys basketball and maybe doesn't have a ton of money, but decides to take their kid or their family or their partner or friends out to see a game one day, I want to be there to see the top stars play against the Raptors and vice versa, right? And if I can't see that, then why am I investing my money or my time in this product when I know that really and truly I'm going to be able to see it in the playoffs, but I probably won't be able to actually afford a ticket anyways.
No, it's a great point. I'm a season seat holder with my brothers and some friends, and there's a lot of debate, like when do you take that Clippers game? Because as funny as it seems, I mean, are you like super confident that Kawhi is going to come and play? Like, I think he probably will. And it would, but it's Kawhi. He answers to himself. So if he's not feeling like playing against the Raptors, he won't. So all of a sudden you took that game like 3rd overall or something, and then you show up and Kawhi is not playing, and you're like, oh man. Yeah, so it's kind of
and especially like the Clippers are going to have to do that with Paul George, right? Like Paul George is still not healthy, and they're saying he might not even be healthy till November, and that's just what we're hearing as rumors. Maybe like nothing has really been confirmed. Obviously,
I heard 10 games at least
at the minimum, and so don't tell me that Paul George is going to miss 10 games and then come right back in and play 35 minutes a game. That's not happening. They are going to have to load manage him, especially with a guy who has, an injury history, right? Like, let's be real. Paul George, as great as he is and has become and developed, he still snapped his leg. And it took him a year and a half, almost 2 years to get back to sort of kind of being the guy that he was. And even now, he's still very much more of a wing perimeter-oriented guy. He's not the dunker that we used to know. He's not as voracious of an attacker. Right. And this stuff takes time. And with that and both shoulder injuries in OKC, I don't see him standing the test of time with this team on the Clippers without having some sort of injury, unless they load manage him to get him to the playoffs so that he is healthy when they need him and Kawhi the most.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And if you're the Clippers, you have a very, very close eye on that. Well, Derick, after last week with our technical issues, I'm happy we got you on. And thanks for chatting with us.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's always my pleasure. Thank you for having me, and I'm glad that the technical issues got figured out. And I'm more than happy to come back on the pod anytime. Thank you, guys.
Awesome, man. I'm happy to have you back, and support your local broadcaster, everyone. CBC, you know.
And go out and vote.